Many of you out there have wondered, why is the Disney stock acting the way it is? While we're not a financial channel, we are here to tell you something's been going on behind the scenes, which we are now ready to talk about and, well, sprinkle some sunshine all over it. And that is, folks, that a battle royale is breaking out for the direction of the Walt Disney Company. If you've watched this channel very much, you already know about Nelson Peltz, the Trian Group. You know about Ike Perlmutter. But you don't know about this new investment firm that has come in with massive connections. And now, a bunch of really rich guys are all trying to decide where the Disney company will go. Will it continue down the Iger path of teaching your kids things you don't want your kids exposed to and building connections with China, or will it go back to the original vision of Walt? It is all being exposed right now. Well, things are heating up at the Walt Disney Company in a way that many people out there are completely unaware. We are about to break this thing wide open, folks. Explain to you exactly why the Disney stock has been doing what it has been doing, although we must say at the start of this video that please do not use this as any sort of financial advice. Please do not make any financial decisions, despite the fact that we are going to explain a significant chunk of the financial situation for the Walt Disney Company and pull back the curtains of the House of Mouse. Joining us to help do so is Mexican Iron Man and Jonas J. Campbell. These two gentlemen today have more knowledge than myself in terms of what's going on here, and I'm excited to learn along with all of you today. But we must begin somewhere, and that beginning starts right now with this article out of CNBC by Kenneth Squire. Activist investor ValueAct has been building a stake in Disney. ValueAct Capital began buying Disney this summer during the Hollywood strikes, and it is now one of the investors' largest positions, the activist Spotlight has learned. The activist has been in dialogue with Disney's management and is still growing their position, according to the activist Spotlight. ValueAct believes that Disney's theme parks and consumer product businesses are alone worth low $80 per share. Now, folks, as we describe what's going on to you, let's just say this. ValueAct seems to be in direct opposition to Nelson Peltz, Trian, Ike Perlmutter, etc. They seem to be in lockstep with Bob Iger as best as we can tell. And what is happening here, I believe, is that the culture war is breaking out into a proxy war, into an investment war at the Walt Disney Company. And there are two sides to this. Those who wish for Disney to continue disseminating the kind of cultural depravity to children that we've been watching, and those who wish for Disney to go back to traditional and timeless values. Two different beliefs in how this should be. Propagandists versus money-making traditionalists. And this is where the battleground is going to be fought out. We'll read just a little bit more, then I want to bring in Jonas and Mike to give us their opinions on this. ValueAct Capital has taken a significant stake in Disney and has been in dialogue with Disney's management. Here's a breakdown of the situation. Disney is one of the most iconic entertainment companies globally. It operates through two segments, Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution and Disney Park Experiences Products. ESPN somewhere in there, I'm sure. Stock market value right now is $167 billion. And it talks about ValueAct. ValueAct has been a premier corporate governance investor for over 20 years. ValueAct knows technology very well, as seen by their active investments at SalesForce, Microsoft, and Adobe, where they had board seats. They also know media well as active investors at the New York Times, Spotify, and 21st Century Fox. Now, ValueAct believes that Disney's theme parks and consumer products businesses and their $10 billion in EBIT, that's earnings before interest and taxes, are alone worth low $80 per share. What's really going on here, folks, is that ValueAct has been buying tons and tons of stock at the same time that Trian, Nelson Peltz, have been attempting to gain more and more leverage. And as a result, for those of you out there who have wondered, what in the world is going on with this stock? Why won't it go down? Disney's not performing well. Well, it seems like what's been happening is major players in this ideological battle, I suppose, this worldview battle, they've been buying up stocks behind the scenes without many people knowing it, and that has been holding the stocks, we believe, at a level that may have been undue and perhaps would not have been otherwise. I want to now go to Mike and to Jonas to fill us in on exactly how this is playing out, what is going on here, and explain it to the folks in a way that we can all understand what the ramifications are. Gentlemen, take it away.
Mike helped me out immensely on this, and so a lot of what I know now is because Mike put me onto the right issues here. So I highly recommend having a Mexican Iron Man in your corner whenever you talk about these kind of issues. That being said, Mason Morfit is the guy over there that runs ValueAct, and you mentioned in that article, of course, that SalesForce is one of the companies that ValueAct has an investment in. So we did our video over on That Park Place talking about how Nelson Peltz operates. Well, let's talk about how Mason Morfit operates. He's an interesting fellow. He's a young guy, although this is an old picture of him. In 2014, he was Microsoft's new 38-year-old board member, and he explains how he handles his activist investing. Look at him. He's a smiley guy right there. He looks kind of cool, right? He says, everybody wants to talk about the latest scandal of the day or the sexy conflict in the Wall Street Journal. That is a small minority of shareholder activism. As our firm evolved through the last decade, we've tried and failed and tried and succeeded at a lot of things. We've done proxy fights. We've done public campaigns. We've done very media-driven efforts, but we found that the most effective thing we can do is working behind the scenes and building on our network and in a collegial spirit influence companies. So the lion's share of our success is due to stuff that you have no idea ever happened. This guy right here has a lot of finesse, and his tack seems to be quietly working behind the scenes. In fact, this is one that I need to do more research on, and I think Mike would be able to comment on more. This is from January of this year that Mason Morfit got himself a position on the board of SalesForce. Now, SalesForce was in a bit of chaos at the time. Mike, can you take over this portion? Because I'm more shaky here.
Well, yeah, I guess what I'll say briefly so we can move on with this story is that this is an investment firm that's seen as, in terms of being an activist investor, more like a facilitator, definitely someone who's focused on money and revenue and earnings, but also on facilitation versus hostility or being sort of prodding. More like think of it as like there might be conflict in the room, and this is someone that comes in and deflates the pressure and sort of tries to get their agenda done by sort of calming the waters, if you will, and being, shall I say, at least in that scenario, not as hostile to management and more with management.
So let me ask you guys a question then, so the audience can understand what we're talking about here, because we are deep in the weeds at this point. Nelson Peltz came in, joined forces with Ike Perlmutter. Those gentlemen seem to be of a conservative mindset. They want to see Disney go back to what Disney was doing. They want Disney to be profitable. Bob Iger, simultaneous, seems to have wanted so badly for Disney to be a trendsetter in the opposite direction that he was willing to sacrifice a CEO and return to the spot and get off his yacht. And it seems to me now that he has found an ally who will begin investing tremendously to help him secure leverage over the company, and that is Mason Morfit of ValueAct. Do I have this right, guys? Is that what's happening here?
I think you're probably correct. Obviously, we don't know Mason Morfit's politics, but I think he's a San Francisco guy, for what that's worth. As we were talking about before, he was on the board of Microsoft, and I found this very interesting when I was doing my research. Do you know who took his seat?
I believe I know that fellow in the picture there.
Yeah, that is Hugh Johnston, the new CFO of the Walt Disney Company. Somehow,
Johnston, folks. Hugh Johnston.
Exactly.
So when I first heard that these guys were getting involved in picking up more shares, and my initial reaction was maybe this is somebody that could align with the Peltz crowd. But that was yesterday afternoon and late last night. When I woke up this morning, I thought about two things. One is the article where it says that this investment firm has been talking to management. Now, we know from the recent Bob Iger interview last week that he said that he has not talked to Peltz because that's a hostile relationship. So that when I woke up this morning, I had two thoughts. My first thought are these guys are talking to management. Management means Iger. Then that means that instead of being on a Nelson Peltz side, these guys have to be more Iger side. They have to be because we know management isn't talking to Peltz because he said so on CNBC.
Right. Well, just for clarity on that, he said he did talk to Peltz, but he's pretending like he doesn't know what Peltz wants.
Well, that's what I mean. You're right. But
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Okay. Hi. How are you doing? And whatever. Okay. Whatever. But the other thing too that struck me about this is that I reflected on what I know secondhand through a friend of mine who was at Salesforce, still there actually. This is not. This is a more of a facilitator type of investment fund. They're not going to come in and shake and bake, because that's not what they've done before. I'm sure you could speak to that from your research, Jonas, about what their style has been.
Well, he seems to be a quote unquote quiet the noise kind of guy. Maybe that's what Bob Iger was referring to when he said he would quiet the noise in the culture war, because from what we're seeing from the Disney company, it's not based on their own internal actions. We won't get into that in this video, but maybe he was talking about trying to calm down the shareholder battle. I don't know. One thing that I want to throw in here, which is a little bit more on the freewheeling side, Mason Morfit has an interesting wife. She's a looker, I will say that. Jordana Brewster from the Fast and Furious movies. This is, I go with me here for just a second. But by the way, congratulations to them on their nuptials. There, it looks like they had a lovely wedding
ceremony. That's right.
This is oh, there it is. Yeah, Vin Diesel was in attendance. I'm not sure if he didn't realize what time the wedding was, but he appears to be in a t-shirt there. May want to dress up the next time. Maybe talk to his social planner. But do you know where Jordana Brewster and Mason Morfit happen to live? That would be Brentwood. That is.
I think I know of someone who lives in Brentwood.
Yeah.
Mike, you know anybody who lives in Brentwood?
I'm gonna go with I'll take hashtag dang it Bob for 400.
Hashtag lots of showers in that home. So they're neighbors then, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting the connections here. Well, it seems to me that now Nelson Peltz has a major competitor who is going to be helping Iger. Although, folks, people are messy. And the market is messy, and investment is messy, and you never know when somebody is going to change positions or do something you did not expect. But this seems to me to be going in the direction that Bob Iger has reached out and found somebody who will invest heavily into the company and sort of push back against Peltz. And so now what we have to wait and see, I guess, is will Peltz come out swinging? Will he find somebody? Because if all of this, if the Disney stock has been pumped up and held up and propped up by these investment firms buying up huge chunks of the company to wage essentially a culture war over this company that disseminates entertainment to children, we have to see, who else out there might join forces with these groups. We don't know, for example, how a George Lucas might wield his power. We don't know what Michael Eisner is thinking out there. We just don't know. We know the institutional investors, BlackRock, Vanguard, etc., they're probably on board with what Iger wants to do. They're part of the DEI ESG crowd. Guys, let's wrap this up, though. I want to get your takes on where you think this is going over the next months.
Let me go first, if you don't mind. I want to throw a couple things. One is that I need to emphasize to everybody who's watching this video how important board seats are. And it's as much time as we might spend KK this, KK that, Lucasfilm this, Star Wars, Kevin Feige. None of that matters in the big picture. We need to give our attention to who are the investors and who are the board of directors, because that is what matters most. And these guys float around and they're the real decision makers, and no one gives them any attention. So when there are communications, or when there are people buying up stock, and when there are moves made as to who's going to be the investor, that is something we got to keep a close eye on. And number two, what I was going to mention earlier, my second point from earlier was going to be that I found it interesting that no one wanted to comment when asked. So that means that the investment fund didn't want to comment, and neither did Disney management. Now, at first, I thought that might mean that this is sort of a hostile type of thing. But then I thought about it. I'm like, no, that means they're in alignment. Shh. Get it? Get it? because they were trying to do this quietly over a period of time. And this board of directors does not currently have an investment fund or investor per se sitting on the board. There are all these weird token CEO slots from other companies around, that have nothing to do with Disney's core businesses that are just slapped on there. If I were Bob Iger, what I might have been thinking to do a few months ago, earlier this year, and certainly now possibly, is team up with someone else who is an activist investor that might be a friendly one and go and put that guy on the board as a way to anticipate and get ahead of any demands for any future board seats that say a less favorable and more activist investor such as Nelson Peltz might want to do. That might be much more, shall we say, should be less patient with Bob Iger's implementation of his, of the business plan. So I think this is anticipatory. And for me, when I look at the news release and I see that neither one of them wanted to comment, that tells me something's up, and not up in a good way. And that's how I woke up this morning on this news.
Absolutely. And again, for folks out there, remember what this comes down to is Disney is the biggest kid on the block when it comes to putting out family content. They also have massive Chinese investments. There's a group out there that they want a particular type of children's entertainment being disseminated all over North America, and they also want a particular approach to China. And then there are those who want to go back to the way things once were. Jonas, final thoughts?
Well, I think that there's a lot of ties here that will shake out over the next few months. Obviously, this is now 2 ties to Microsoft, which is a $2.74 trillion market cap company, so about 10 times the size of Disney and then some. So there's this huge company here that is building more ties to Disney, whether or not that's intentional. The thing that I am going to be looking into is just how Mason Morfit ended up working his deals over there. I think what this does, and Mike said this, but I'm going to say it in different words, that Bob Iger is probably gearing up to give everyone an excuse to say, oh, see, look, I do listen to activist investors. Don't look over here. Look at Third Point that got...
I really listen to the ones that I like and who come help me out. Right. I really like them.
Yeah, Carolyn Everson, I think that's the name of the board member from Third Point, that they want ESPN spun off into its own company. Doesn't look like that's necessarily happening, but it might be happening in practicality rather than actually splitting off. And if they're listening to ValueAct, they can say, well, see, no, it's just Nelson. Let's shame Nelson over here. So I think that he's trying to give the handwave excuse for investors that aren't too invested in actually following what's going on here. So.
Absolutely. And folks, just listen. Your old pal Pro is telling you whatever you might read in the news, whatever you might see about what's going on here, ValueAct is definitely on board with Iger, we believe. And so that is where this is going right now. It is culminating in a big-time battle up ahead for the heart and soul of the Walt Disney Company. And that means for the heart and soul of culture in North America and beyond. That's how big this is. It's a bunch of rich white guys throwing money around. It's a small club, and you're not in it. But that doesn't mean that you're not just as smart as they are, maybe even smarter and wiser. And that's what we'll continue to do right here, is disseminate that knowledge and empower all of us out there, because we are many and they are few. We will continue to pull back the curtains behind the House of Mouse and the rest of Holly Weird. All right, folks. Mexican Iron Man and Jonas J. Campbell, they produce excellent content. Their links are down in the video description that you can see below. And folks, if you like content like this, click the like button, share, subscribe. When you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. Let us know your thoughts. Weigh in. You all are now officially board members here on the WDW Pro channel, and the board is in session. So drop a comment down below and let us know what you think. Folks, remember, the Pro Show is live Thursdays, 5 to 7 p.m. Eastern Time, and the day just happens to be a Thursday if you're watching this video at the time of release. So we'll see you there, we hope. And folks, wherever you are and whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.
Listen up, my brothers and sisters. You've been listening to Phils and those with an agenda to destroy your brain cells for far too long. It's time to change your way of doing things. Hold up. TPP is the place to be. Covering the news so honestly. It's a team that's cool and tried and true. Ahead of the culture curve, they're trying to keep you. Jonas and Pro, they run the show. And they dragged in the bearded culture casino. You got Valiant and Lord and Force of Light. Wonderful people, yeah, they're alright. They got weird bringing in people like Floral, but made no mistake with Lorena Creole. Amelia and John, stuttering guitarist. Martin and Tawny and someone called CMS. Fat Steven makes a bunch of all the graphics. Did I mention a partnership with Bending in the comics? Fat Sky is a guy and Doc Matt does the web stuff. There's probably some people I missed. I hope they're not telling you the news. That should be fun. With accurate info that's not been spun. You can figure it out as you will see. The TPP is the place to be.
Yeah, Wilton. That was actually pretty good, or white. But I think you might have forgotten Vash.
Well, he lost all his friends. But it was implied.